Okay, you guys, here I am again, and I have to say that I'm nervous. I'm trying some new things here, learning some new techniques for communicating my thoughts and my messages and providing ideas and tips and suggestions. And so it's going to be a little, this time around, I'm going to sound a little disjointed, but I'm going to try to follow this fabulous formula that has helped me in brainstorming my ideas. So I actually want to tell you first about the weekend. The last weekend I spent, this past weekend, I spent with my family from my husband's side. They are definitely my family too, and we spent the weekend celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. So amazing, so beautiful, and so rare. It was an incredible weekend. And what I noticed is, of course, there were three generations. There were my kids, there was my generation, and then there was Jason's parents, their generation. So it was interesting because, of course, when you have these three represented and there's a whole mix of people and there's planning to be done of where to go and what to eat and where to eat and how long to be there and when to go ahead and when to stay behind and all of that. And so it was really interesting just to watch us all maneuver that and to determine, what we needed and what would we do together as a group and what would we do separately. So just really interesting to observe that. And it had me considering the different generations that we have in the workplace. And I'm doing a workshop on Thursday for a company here in Spokane, and this is the topic. So I thought it would be kind of fun to kick this topic around too. So what I want to talk about is how leaders can manage and even leverage having those four different generations, because there's actually four generations in the workplace now. There's the traditionalists, who actually tend to be the owners. They're the ones that have worked and worked and worked, and they've owned or they're in top leadership positions. So those are the traditionalists. Then we have the baby boomers, and that's my mom's or my dad's generation. They are the ones that tend to be C-suite leaders. They are holding a lot of the upper management positions. Now there's a ton of them, and here's the interesting thing. The next generation, which is my generation, Generation X, there's a lot less of us. So there's going to be a skilled workers gap in the near future. So that's really interesting that that's coming, something to consider, especially when you're managing these four different generations. How can we manage that gap? So the reality is, when you have four different age groups represented, when you're trying to accomplish things and be productive and be innovative and be high-performing teams, it makes it challenging. And I think that a lot of companies don't understand what a gift it is. I think a lot of them are resisting it because it is a challenge, but there's major gifts, really gifts in disguise. So one of the beautiful possibilities of these generations being able to collaborate and work together is that they will be able to be high performers and they will be able to be innovative. And I really, truly believe that when we are able to understand, respect, and trust all the generations in the workplace, that affects not only our work life, but our family life. Because like I said, I spent the weekend in the face of, in the experience of a total of three different generations with three different views, values, needs, wants, all of that, strengths, those kinds of things. So one of the problems that happens in the workplace is that a lot of folks think, leadership and frontline believe, that four generations is unmanageable. And the truth is that the generation diversity actually strengthens a workplace. You have that variety of perspective, you have that variety of experience, and that's representing potentially your customer base. So you have representatives within the workplace that can really help bring ideas and perspective. So that's pretty cool. And the second problem is often because of these different views and values and needs that there's conflict, that there's a rub of fighting for being heard, being understood, and getting our needs met. But actually, the gift is that these different views and values, again, strengthen the workplace, that it actually creates, like any diversity, it creates a stronger foundation. And they, the views, again, can represent your customer base. The third problem that I hear a lot of is that in organizations that have been around for a long time, that the leadership are tending to be the traditionalists and the boomers, and that the millennials come and go, that they can't keep the millennials. There's a lot of turnover. So what would be cool is to really get clear about what the millennials in particular are needing and what their values are, and also then figure out how we can not only meet their needs, but also become more aware of what our needs are. I think that and I know that when it comes to human beings, we have a handful, a really long list of needs, human universal needs that have to be met in order for us to thrive. And that's different than the basics, food, water, shelter, safety, love, those kinds of things. What I'm talking about are things like emotional safety, cooperation, connection. We need recognition. We need appreciation. We need understanding. We need to be heard. We need so many needs we have. And truly, when we're all aware of those needs and we're committed to helping each other and getting our needs met, then we become more understanding, respectful, and trusting of each other. And when that happens, magic happens. Bottom line, when we can build more trust and understanding of each other's differences, then we can do wonderful things. We can become high-performing teams. We can be more innovative. We can be more productive. We can really impact the bottom line. So that's the third problem. And really, I would say the fourth problem within organizations when it comes to these generations is that it's super easy to point. It's super easy to be defensive and to be reactive and to blame. It's really very much a defense mechanism that is very common and human to do. And yet, when we own our part in the co-creation of the situation, we are in power. I can't change anybody. I can't convince somebody to stay. However, if I don't own how I'm impacting them and the choices that I'm making are impacting the organization, then I don't have any power to change. I don't have any influence. And truly, when there's ownership, there's an opening. When somebody is vulnerable and they're owning their feelings and they're owning their judgments and they're open about it and they're able to be candid in a respectful way, again, the trust builds and it allows for so many beautiful possibilities. So let's see. The reality of that is that we need to all realize that we are playing a part in any of the challenges that are happening at work, and that we can be part of the solution. So that's really exciting. Now, some of the mindsets or the principles that we have to change is that we have to appreciate these differences. We have to realize, again, the strengths are in the differences. We have to have curiosity around the differences. So how are you different from me? And why why do you think that way? Why do you need that? It's so interesting the different backgrounds we have, the different times of the world that we've grown up in that really shape our lives. And to learn and understand the other generation's experience is to connect. It's to build community at work. And that brings in a whole nother level of job satisfaction and increased morale and community at work. So that's all really exciting. The third mindset that really I believe needs to happen is having a positive attitude for learning how to manage, that it's possible. And that not only is it possible, but these differences can be leveraged and they can be used to strengthen our companies. And then finally, the last mindset is to realize that self-awareness and taking time to reflect on our own thoughts and feelings and needs and values, and reflecting on those and how we're a part of co-creating those mindsets, that's really important. So so here's some homework if you're somebody that wants to really bridge any kind of gap with a generation that is not yours, that's not the same as yours, whether it's a family member, maybe it's a grandparent trying to understand their millennial that may have just left a job after 1 year and you're like, what? You had a great job, right? But maybe that job didn't have meaning for that millennial. That's so important to this generation to have their work mean something and make a contribution. So yeah, so here's your homework. I want you to identify a generation that you find you are reactive to, that you find judgment or you tend to blame about problems in the world, problems in the workplace, problems in the family, problems in the home. Really identify that generation and learn about them, find out, ask them, research it, find out what were some of the historical events and political, what was the political scene while they were growing up? What was the media's take on things? What was the level of violence in their lives? Were they in fear a lot? Were they not safe a lot of the time? Pay attention and learn about that. Find out what shaped their viewpoints, what they like and why they need what they need. And then your second assignment is to acknowledge the differences and really begin to notice them as strengths. Look for the strengths. Look for ways that that other generation contributes to your life, contributes to the world. And the third step is when you notice you're triggered, whether you are feeling on some continuum of angry or some continuum of fearful or some continuum of disappointment, sadness, notice it and own it. Pay attention to what the thoughts are that are creating that feeling and that reaction. So notice when you're triggered. And then when you're naming those judgments, see what those judgments are in the pointing. How are we pointing? And then in what ways can we own that we're part of the situation? We're part of what's been created, the tension or the disconnection. So really consider what are my mindsets? What are my judgments? What are they that are holding me back from connecting with this person? And then what mindset or thoughts might I have about them and their generation that would help me open my heart to them, that would help us connect and understand each other? And notice your actions or inactions that you may be doing or not doing that is creating more of the division. So that's really, those are really the steps that I want to recommend in order to begin to leverage those differences to create connection, to build trust, and to build a better relationship, whether it's at work or at home, and really thrive. Because when people understand, respect, and trust each other, they're going to commit to and bring their best in order to thrive. So it is definitely past my bedtime. I can hear it in my voice. And I would love to hear your comments. Try some of these things out and post your comments and tell me what it is that you have tried and what worked and what didn't and what are you noticing. I would love to hear about that. Okay, thanks for listening. And, may we build a better world together. And so it is.